forward. Deputy Presiding Officer, referring to slavery, John Henry Clark once said that to control a people, you must first control what they think about themselves and how they regard their history and culture. And when your conqueror makes you ashamed of your culture and your history, he needs no prison walls and no chains to hold you. This quote reminds me of the advice that the Minority Council, Senator Hislop and their colleagues are all giving Tobagonians as we speak on social media. They are advising us to take autonomy step by step and that we should learn to eat little and live long. Haven't our great grandparents been doing that all along? Yes. The assets that we have in and around Tobago should have been sufficient to lift Tobagonians out of our current state. But what we have instead is a society hugely dependent upon the Tobago House of Assembly, which is severely underfunded. The PNM can boast that for decades, they have enriched their finances and robbed Tobagonians of their dreams. Yes. Deputy Presiding Officer, Tobago deserves more from this Trinidad and Tobago arrangement. Today I stand in support of my colleague, the Secretary of Finance, with this motion. And it is an interesting one, because it's really saying to us here in Tobago that we would never get closer to the upper end of what the Dispute Resolution Commission agreed to. Anywhere close to the 6.9% of the total budget pie to develop Tobago. So the Tobago House of Assembly now has to scale down its efforts at progress. Deputy Presiding Officer, the food import bill for Trinidad and Tobago now stands at $7.3 billion, reported to be the highest it has ever been. And for years, the bill averaged over $5 billion. This figure represents the amount of money paid to companies and individuals outside of Trinidad and Tobago. And it is important to note that this $7.3 billion is more than what the government spends on its annual public sector investment program. And is only now, in the 2024-2025 budget, that the finance minister is seeking to make investments locally to address food security, when the problem is already out of control. Deputy Presiding Officer, I don't know if you could permit me to sing in the house, but you know the popular PNM song? We love you so, we take good care. We know that, right? Rubbish. Total rubbish. In the 2024-2025 budget, the Finance Minister, Colin Imbert, outlined that food security is high on the agenda and is seeking to expand agricultural production by allocating $1.184 billion to the sector. The question to Tobagonians should be, how much of that will come to Tobago? Today, my presentation in this house will focus on three things, and very simple things, and I won't be very long, as I usually am. What every category of worker and what every stakeholder have all been experiencing on the ground. The division's activities in fiscal 2023-2024 to revive a declining sector, a dead and decaying sector, and the major priorities of the division for fiscal 2024-2025. Deputy Presiding Officer, let me tell this Honorable House what I met when I assumed office. After I keep reminding people, because the minority keep ranting on all kind of nonsense. So I'll jog his memory as well. With the exception of the $40 million Scarborough market, which was leaking inside it, rain falling, wetting up people in the haberdashery section, and you don't even have a sign. and a Trinidad contractor, $40 million. And it wasn't even built, it was refurbished for $40 million. The Castara Fish Facility, $15 million. Trinidad contractor. And all of them had to be finished when we assume office. Every other building and facility completely run down, either shut down or barely functional. For some of these buildings, the ceilings and floors were completely rotten or eaten by wood ants. And just in case that is not what? Parliamentary language, eaten by termites. And after conducting swab tests on all processing equipment, none could be utilized for processing. Wow. The capital of paradise was missing for years. And I challenge anybody here and online, have you ever heard a single report coming from this vessel, the operation of this vessel? Never. You never heard it make $1 for Tobago, right? Nothing. Even the documents in TADCO missing. Whole filing cabinet of contracts missing. And the minority want to talk about this administration? I am sure you never heard on this side any documents missing at all. We're responding to every question. Across the entire island, if you could remember, even the Prime Minister visited us when we got into office. He spoke about how mistletoe took over the whole island. And now you have the giant African snail coming up from Trinidad. Remember the state that Tobago was in. We even continued having the crops destroyed by coquelicot and parrot. Deputy Presiding Officer, you know what has been very frustrating as well? Similar to many other divisions. I'm at a division without money for development. And still the Minority Council wants to add pressure by making unreasonable requests from this Executive Council. Imagine the PNM destroyed every piece of asset under the Division of Food Security in 21 years and expect this administration to fix every piece of asset under food security in 3 years with no development budget. This is truly an example of eating little and live long. Deputy Presiding Officer, the Division of Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment, and Sustainable Development has to continue promoting the activities of every stakeholder and encouraging everyone in the sector to focus on their trade and think about it as a science and a business so that the sector could remain sustainable. So last fiscal, what we did, 2023-2024, we focused on refurbishing and building stuff. Yeah, that's what we did. Refurbishing and building. We refurbished the Bloody Bay Orientation Center, and it is 90% complete, hoping to open by Christmas or the New Year, in time for the tourist season. And it was refurbished both phases by a Tobago contractor. That's important. We refurbished the Barbados Bay Fish Facility, Tobago contractor. The locker storage in Charlottesville, soon to be open for Christmas, Tobago contractor. Constructing the Palo-Tavere Fish Facility. And by the way, I saw the minister, Ayanna Webster-Roy, trying to claim as if, you know, she involved and she knows what's going on online. She don't know one thing. So let me say in the House today that phase 2 is going to continue, yeah, in this new fiscal. Refurbishing the Roxborough Fish Facility, 90% complete. Refurbishing the Buku Fish Facility and the Research Center, hoping to open by Christmas. Refurbishing the Buku Training Center. And if you forget what the training center looked like, every time you pass in that back road in Buku, you would see several vessels, derelict vessels, An entire research facility and training facility totally run down. Soon to be open for the new year and house a brand new company, the Tobago Agri-Technology Services Company. Done by a Tobago contractor. Right. We repaired a patrol vessel. The one patrol vessel that we had to do surveillance of all the marine parks, the official and the unofficial ones. That even the Coast Guard, who has no vessel, had to, yes, even the Coast Guard, they had no vessel. They had to use our boat, right? That was repaired by a Tobago contractor. The packing house, right in the back of Shore Park, totally run down when you swap the equipment, can't eat nothing from there. Refurbished, no contractor selected, it was done by staff. Down to the painting was done by staff. You see motivation? Refurbishing the Culloden fish facility, that is at 35%, we get in there. 100% completed the Scarborough Abattoir, and we are hoping to open next week. And just in case the minority want to mislead you, our staff, we are continuing to work with T&Tech so that we could regulate the high voltage issue in the area. Because if we run the sewer system on the current voltage, it will destroy the system. So that is what causing the delay, right? With T&Tech trying to resolve that high voltage issue. As soon as they get it right, the Scarborough Abattoir would be opened. Access roads development at Belmont Road, Gibba Gully. And if you don't know where Gibba Gully is, soon when we open it, you all will get to drive in and see where Gibba Gully is. Miles and miles of road. Farmland development continues at Argyle under the office of the Chief Secretary. And listen, Tobago was a dead place. When I say dead. No vendor was making any money. Right? And what the division continues to do for the vendors, keeping Lamb Festival, horticultural show, Women Expo this Friday, Chocolate and Mud, which is a culinary event as well. All these festivals is to put money in the pockets of Tobagonians. So we're focusing on the infrastructure because we have to fix the sector. But to create the balance, all these activities, the division are making no money from it. Even the Scarborough Botanic Garden Christmas Glitz, the vendors are the ones who are going to make the money from this. So the training programs continue, and it's all kind of training, down to herbs and spices, how to make forage for animals. And we had to restructure the eradication program. Just imagine, cocoa fields abandoned for years. All kind of vine tie-up, banana growing in between. And now you have a bird whaler assisting farmers with the pests so that they could experience a first harvest on the cocoa estates. So tell me if that isn't progress. I am sure I challenge anybody online to tell me when last I hear a cocoa farmer saying that they're going on harvest cocoa. Dwayne Dove was so proud to say that we saved his business. So, I don't know, the minority delusional. And he spoke about Novo, but let me tell you something. Novo is in Guyana. Novo is all over the Caribbean now. Until countries giving them land to assist the island. But you know what? The minority want us to start from scratch because them ruin everything in agriculture. So everything that we try here, not good enough. All right, he had time on his hands. Deputy Presiding Officer, some of these projects will be completed in December of this year or next year, early next year. But these contractors would need a payment. And that is why Tobago needs its fair share of the total budget pie. So if the finance minister is serious about agriculture in Tobago, just as in Trinidad, then what's wrong with giving us our fair share of the total budget pie. I want to state here that my division has been eating little and living long for too long. And despite the funding challenges we face, we continue to try. And the public giving us good grades, with the exception of the Minority Council. We have been mobilizing creatively and managing the little resources we have to achieve so much more in the last 3 years than they did in 21 years. So we continue to focus our efforts on the stakeholder needs, and we continue to work together as a team. And let me say, I am extremely proud of what the Division of Food Security has accomplished. Yes. And it is because of the prudent management of resources at the Division of Finance, because we depend on them solely to give us money. Yeah? So just imagine how much we could do in Tobago if we got our fair share. The time for eating a little and living long has expired. Trinidad is not eating a little and living long. So side by side, equality implied, that is implied in the national anthem, needs to become more than just the lines in the song. Nonetheless, Deputy Presiding Officer, in this fiscal year, we as a division intend to continue focusing on key facilities in the space, developing farmlands, and continue the Access Roads program. The Tobago House of Assembly will continue to revise the incentives program to support the sector. With the introduction of technology at this year's Agri-Technology Innovation Summit, stakeholders will be exposed and trained on how to utilize technology in their operations, and this will reduce risks and increase profits and productivity in the sector. The Tobago House of Assembly will then look at the possibility of partnering with stakeholders and insurance companies to facilitate compensation mechanisms. Deputy Presiding Officer, I want to end by saying Tobagonians need to benefit from their own resources to develop the entire island and to feed its people. Imagine in the 2024 budget, Trinidad allocated $7.5 million to establish community gardens and $56 million to upgrade the Emperor Valley Zoo to include a cinema and a bar. And in this fiscal, giving Tobagonians only $5 million to develop agricultural access roads. This year, our request for both recurrent and development was at $508 million. Yeah, we were trying. We were trying. However, the allocation minus the Department of Environment is $198.1 million. And this still will not translate into actual cash that we will receive. Our expenditure trend for both recurrent and development since 2021, $167.8 million. 2022, $168.2 million. 2023, $163.8 million. 2024, $168.2 million. So it's more or less the same thing and a little less. This year we project expenditure of close to $200 million, with the biggest spend on the priority projects. With the size of the food import bill, we are forced to continue to take the chance to revive the sector. And this is what it is, a chance. So as the Secretary, I implore our people, Tobagonians, to understand that this spending that we are doing now is an investment in you, so that in the event of a disaster in Trinidad or Tobago, with Tobago's arable lands and prized livestock, we can continue to support each other and to build this greatest little island on the planet. We're depending on you. So for my friends on the other side, let me give you a message to carry back for your handlers. Tobago people are neither pleased, satisfied, nor comforted by any of your recent statements post-budget. Take that back. We live here on Gilligan's Island every single day, and who feels it knows it. We are being shortchanged, bullied, and judged for demanding our just due, not just now, but for too many generations. Love is an action word, and Tobago needs more action and more money from Port of Spain. So take that back, take that message back, and put my name on it, Assemblyman Natisha Charles Panty. Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer.
Member for Bethel, Newgrange, you may Bethel, Newgrange, you may join the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, for the opportunity to add my voice to this most acid debate. I want to hastily thank the people of Bethel Newgrange who exposed confidence in me on 2 occasions to be their representative, hence privileging me to be a member of this house with the sacred right of making contributions from time to time as my ability permits. Relatedly, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, on November 16th this year, I celebrated a birthday, taking me to 62. And one of the realities of aging is a depreciating of retaining skills. So I would want to seek your leave to read some parts of my short contribution today, sir.
Granted. Leave is granted.
Additionally, Mr. Presiding Officer, I was informed that my Secretary James, advised team members in the other place that he will instruct me to contribute today. And one cannot, of course, allow the Secretary's word to fall to the ground. So it may be safe to say that Bethel Newgrange's endorsing of me being here and the Secretary's instructing are the driving force behind my short contribution today. But before I really get into the meat of what I will say, and I won't be very long, honestly. I want to make an observation from some of the things that the minority leader had to say. You have to have a certain kind of tolerance level to be in this place, you know. And you have to always be conscious of the rules, because sometimes the kind of things you hear, you're tempted to use industrial language. But if it is true that if you do the same thing the same way and expect a different result, you are mad, then I think we need to call in the Deputy Chief Secretary, Dr. Faith, to get the relevant people from the mental health unit to come and take this man to some mental place. Because every debate we have here, every debate, all of us can attest to it, is the same thing, the same rhetoric, and apparently he expects a different result. So if there is anybody that is mentally deranged, according to his reasoning, it must be him. At some point, we have to say that this house should be a place for sensible conversation. It should be. And I am a perennial optimist. I come here every time we have a sitting, and I expect, in all honesty, I understand the challenge and the temptation to be involved in the partisan political thing and all that. But you expect some sense, because this thing is going on the public record. And I don't know. I suspect it is also maddening to expect A-class behavior from a B-class horse too, you know. I suspect so. So maybe we have to draw on our tolerance much more, because there seems to be no end to the kind of madness and foolishness that we have to undergo listening to some of the things on the other side. But anyway, I'm seeking your leave often, Mr. Presiding Officer. I want to have a kind of non-conventional approach to my short contribution. In fact, it can be deemed a kind of sermonic speech, titled "The Gospel of Autonomy. We shall not be stopped." The motion before us, as I assess it, suggests that despite, and by the way, I want to commend the Secretary for Finance for the motion and the way she's moved it. She has a certain kind of professional grace. Yes, for some, she knows what she's talking about. And I suspect, when intelligence takes the floor, when you're daft and thing, you have to continue being daft, you understand? Yeah. But nonetheless. So this presentation, as I said earlier, I cannot give it a title. Yes, we shall not be stopped, because the motion, as I see it, despite the successive data-driven, scientific, development-friendly, and decent budget preparation and also presentation made in this space that we call Tobago, the powers that be remain true to form in underfunding Tobago programs and development. So, alas, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, the utopic Tobago that we see in our mind's eye will only be an elusive dream if we in this season don't take radical actions to evangelize the entire Tobago population, whether you're at home or abroad, with the liberating gospel of autonomy. I think I'll just say that again. That we will not do justice to our call to these hallowed halls and this walk in the governance landscape of Tobago if we don't aggressively and radically take every action possible, because it seems to me that no matter what we do, no matter how professional we are, no matter what skill sets we bring into the firmament, and we present the budgets and so on, and we bring a rationale for it, we bring proof that we are doing something sensible for the holistic development of our people, that we seem to not be able to get a reasonable, human, and sensitive response from the powers that be to finance our program. And so, to me, the only next thing that is left is, in mass, we must demand that Tobago gets full autonomy. But we don't ask no man about how much we want for a budget. We we'd have to get take the timing of Tobago's developmental rhythm elsewhere. We set the timing ourselves. I don't know how you feel about this, but I believe that Tobago has come of age. And the worst thing is to appear as a big man but not run in your house. It is even worse to be in office and not be in power. And so, it's worse to be in office and not in power. And when a man controls your money, right, he pretty much controls you, though. You understand? And no matter how you dress, no matter how you talk, no matter how you throw your weight around that you think you have, when a man controls your money, he controls you. And I am saying that we have come to the place. Tobago has been in stasis for years. All this small talk that they talk and give the impression that the PNM was doing this and doing this. I mean, my friend used to say, a blind man with broad glasses could see that they've been wasting time and wasting resources, as the secretary was saying. Over close to $1,000 million them fellas lick up. And it's like an albatross around the neck of this present administration, and they have the unmitigated gall to come and talk about transparency. You know, when I hear the thing, you know, seriously, sometimes I don't feel you could dive on them. But of course, the house does not permit these things. I'm just talking about how I feel, Mr. Presiding Officer. But I want to just say that is autonomy or nothing. And we don't want it next year. And when I say no, meaning figuratively, we don't want it, we don't want you to put it off. And these so-called PNM minions that are going around the place talking, they like in history, in slavery time, like the white and black taboob. These are the facilitators of slavery. I don't want nobody to tell me time to cool off. If you keep cooling off, you'll end up in a deep freeze. We want autonomy and we want it now. We want to know that we control this space that is called Tobago. We determine how Tobago is run. We determine what our dreams and goals, and thankfully we already have this course charted out. We want to have the greatest little island on the planet. We're not asking nobody permission for that. We have come of age. And it's time for us to exercise our mannishness in this place we call Tobago. And we are thankful that the Chief Secretary has set the tone for all of us, because a lot of leaders in Tobago have been afraid of prime ministers in Trinidad historically. You understand? And when you start to talk up for yourself, you know, when you see your father talking up in the house, it sets the tone, especially for the males in the family. You understand? This is how a man must talk. You understand? And so we are respectful. We understand what the law says and so on, but we are resolute. Resolute that this domination of Tobago and Tobago's leaders and all of that, this mentality that a lot of people in Trinidad have as it relates to Tobagonians, that we must just take little, listen, that dog no longer hunts. I happened to be in the Ministry of Finance many years ago, sitting in the office, speaking to one of the senior officials preparing, you know, the finances and so on, and as it relates to Tobago, and she was lamenting about how she had to fight the forces for Tobago to get what Tobago what is, what is due to them and that kind of stuff. There's a fight by a lot of people in Trinidad, And Tobago's bondage and Tobago being this little place where people come just to have a little fete and thing, is in the best interest of some people in Trinidad. You understand? And we have to stop this thing. And I have a passionate feeling about this matter. And I want to say, and I am no great mind. I am no expert in a lot of the things. But from a grassroots perspective, I have come to the conclusion, no matter what we do, if we do not get autonomy, we'll be spinning top in mud right here in this Tobago. And so I want to encourage and to say, and very quickly, I could just give two pieces of evidence why that will substantiate my claim. And the first one is simply the present performance of this government. You could argue that all you want. If you have any decency, regardless of your political position, you have to conclude that this government has been doing exceptional work in the last 3.5 years. Indeed. I have been in my short tour of duty at the Division of Infrastructure, Quarries and Urban Development, just observing the work and looking at what we were doing as it relates to maintenance and so on. With the little resources, Secretary James is always looking for more money to do more things. And, I realize that one of the areas perhaps that is we are deficient is in making workers feel appreciative for the work that they do. I suspect, and what we are seeing is this did not happen yesterday. I believe this is something that has been cultured over the years, where the workers in the division have never been given the exposure to demonstrate their skills and ability, to prove to us that these people that are employed in the division have the capacity to do the work and to do it with the same amount of skill and the same amount of grace as everybody else. And I want to salute Secretary James for his idea and his leadership and exposing our people and letting us all see that at the Division of Infrastructure we have capable people. The maintenance regime is exceptional. Tobago's road infrastructure has not seen any real rehabilitation over the years. I mean, we've faced all kinds of things. We have more vehicles every year, and there's been no major development as it relates to the road infrastructure. Until the advent of Secretary Trevor Williamson James. And I'm not ashamed to say it. I don't have to patronize him. I'm a big man. I don't have to patronize him. It's a fact. And with all the challenges, all the ups and downs and everything else, I think leadership is a critical thing. And when you see a man able to get much done with little, this speaks to the morale and speaks to the quality of leader that you have. And as a team, despite all the challenges that we are facing, resources never enough, together collectively, we have been able to do things here in Tobago that has not been done in many years. Let me just talk a little bit about URP. URP. I mean, URP is not a perfect place, but URP is a major asset, especially on the social landscape of Tobago. The kind of work that URP has been doing, because I'm able to see it for myself, I'm able to go to the site, I am so encouraged. And I am one of those who concede that you have to encourage people when they do work and so on. And the reason why we want more money is so that we can do more, we can help people, we can touch Tobago. Because the Tobago that we now see, the kind of condition that some people live in and all that kind of stuff, these social support systems are critical to where we're trying to go. We want every Tobagonian to dream. We want every Tobagonian to feel that they have a right to the space that we call Tobago. And so I am glad that I am a part of this administration at this particular point in time. Our performance, in my own view, God is my witness, is a performance that is good under the circumstances and excellent in some spaces. I am also fascinated because we have some reasonable and sensible projections as well. And it's very simple, that we will continue to be innovation. We will continue to innovate. We are a bunch of people that have come together that I suspect, it's not a church here, but that God has put his hand on to bring in the governance landscape at this point in time, knowing the climate in which we will be functioning. But all of us around this place have various skills that we bring together to bring the kind of governance that Tobago deserves at this particular point in time. So we shall continue to innovate. Yes, we will be innovative. We will find a way. We will find a way. A businessman told me, he said, Baines, if they try to hold you, we bust out over so. We will find a way. And that is what we have been doing. While we discuss our challenges, make no mistake, we're not sitting down and twiddling our thumbs as if we're in some pommy one. We are finding ways to get the job done. And anybody that is saying that we are not doing that are lying to themselves. We shall continue to innovate and we shall continue to evangelize. And that's it. Because it seems to me, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, and from what I have observed in other jurisdictions, to get this autonomy, nobody giving it to you. We have tried the diplomatic way. One of the reasons why the regime, the Charles regime failed, and one of the narrative at the time was Mr. Charles was too robust and he too rough and he too aggressive. So they want a new leader. They want a diplomat, a man with a softer tone. Soft but powerful, Secretary James. But we have seen that has not benefited us in any significant way. And here we are today. Same problem. You understand? Because we are waiting on somebody else to do this for us. It seems to me that we have to take the bull by its horn to get this thing done. And just us, the members of the government, may not be able to succeed at it. We need to mobilize the entire Tobago. And I want to say, as I get ready to close, that the word of autonomy is hitting the ground. Men in rum shops and barber shops and hamlets and corners are talking about the greatest little island on the planet. And so we must continue with this evangelization. Every opportunity we get, we must let people know that this Tobago belongs to you. You have a stake in the thing. And no man nowhere else must make the decision about how you run your family business, how you educate your children, how much you could buy, where you could go. You must be able to go on a vacation rather than a staycation. Yes. So that pretty much, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, those are the thoughts that I have today. I want to say to all my colleagues, finally, as I conclude, let us forge ahead fearlessly. This work, despite its personal cost, and it certainly has a personal cost, members can testify of what resembles harassment, usage of state agencies to bring discomfort, what I call disproportionate vigilance that we see sometimes on the part of some of the agencies. And let me just say something. Let me just say this as I remember. I mean, Tobagonians are as law-abiding as everybody else. And I was observing, you know, we have it's like a new craze now with licensing officers that come to Tobago. And I want to make it very clear that we have no issue with law. We have no issue with that. But I notice, if you were seeing the same kind of action and activity anywhere in Trinidad, we would have seen it on the news. I'm talking about with the same kind of vigilance. So it resembles something mischievous. And it is also in concourse with some of the things that we have been seeing as the Secretary for Finance. It resembles a kind of attack to try and debilitate the Tobagonian, to try and beat us into subjection. But we will not be stopped. We shall not be stopped. And we want to echo this hard.
Remember,
we may look, yes, sir.
you have 5 minutes of speaking time remaining.
Oh, okay. Thank you. We will not be stopped. We will not be stopped. And so we will continue to move ahead. I believe, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that this work that we are doing here is the work of God. And because I believe that, I also believe equally that God will help us. I thank you.
Member for Scarborough Mongrace, you may now join the debate.
Deputy Presiding Officer, members of the House, members in the gallery, I am pleased, I'm happy to join the debate. And now I want to get to 62. Because apparently, when you cross that 6-0, a new verb overtakes you. A new fire, a new realization that I don't have to take stupidness no more. I could get up and talk my mind. But I take it long time, so I do it now before I get to 62. Deputy Presiding Officer, if value of life is the basis for the allocation of national resources, and if we were to use budgetary allocation, the budgetary allocation to Tobago as the yardstick to indicate the comparative value of life between Tobago and between Trinidad, whether we use an economic formula for value of life, a socio-political formula, or a philosophical formula, whichever formula we use, we will arrive at the same result. The same result. That the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the central government considers the life, the value of life of the Trinidadian to be higher and greater and superior and better than the value of life of the Tobagonian. 30 years since 1996, and if I'm to be more specific, 25 years since 2020, we've had PNM in Tobago, PNM in Trinidad. 2 decades. And we are here every single year, scrapping and scraping for money to build a road, for money to build a school, We're scrapping and scraping to get Carl to fly to Tobago. Yes. Scrapping and scraping to get spelled, to get a license. 20 years of P&M in Trinidad. And my brother Orville in Tobago. And we still at the same place. And my good friend, Mr. Morris, has the audacity to tell Tobagonians that the man who the people of Buku rejected, who Rowley puts in the parliament to make laws in the senior house of the parliament, rejected by Tobago, one district, and who Rowley had the goal to put in the senior house, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago has the, to use Pastor Bain's phrase, unmitigated goal to put in the senior house, legislative house, to make laws for Trinidad and Tobago. And that is the example of where we live, where those in Trinidad have free rein to do anything, to say to Tobago, listen, man, I don't care what you say, I don't care what you do, I am your boss. And we could reject Dennis, you could reject Dennis, and what the next one named Lawrence, all you want. I putting them in the Senate to make laws for you. That is what he's saying. And that rolls down into the budget, because these same blokes will come to Tobago and defend the actions of the government of Trinidad and Tobago to disenfranchise and take away from Tobago what is rightfully Tobagonians. And welcome back, Councillor. It's a pleasure to have you back. Our friends opposite and their friends in Trinidad will disagree. They would dispute. And they may have the impudent, they may be impudent enough to attempt to disprove what I am saying. But we know that the P&M does lie. And they does lie so good that they does believe their own lie. But what doesn't lie are the numbers. The numbers don't lie. In the last 3 to 4 years, the development budget of Tobago, even as we get 4.03%, has come down from 300 million to 205 million at 4.03%. So that the percentage of a fixed variable means nothing and is of no benefit to Tobago, to the people of Tobago, and to the infrastructural needs of Tobago. I'm tempted to repeat that. In the last 4 years, with a 4.03% minimum budget, the development budget for Tobago has come down from 300 million to 205 million. And if we were to be bold enough and to accept the Chief Secretary's challenge to take every responsibility offered to us in the Act of 1996, the recurrent budget will skyrocket into this. If we do take to our country planning, the budget gone up. If we do set up our own environmental agency, the budget gone up. And so we have been stuck in this quagmire that as we try to step out, we are burdened down by this budget problem. And that is the crux, or one of the major cogs in this struggle for autonomy this, as Pastor Baines put it, this control of your money by somebody else is the problem, is one of the major problems. And if we cannot, as Tobagonians, realize that a percentage of a fixed percentage of a variable budget in Trinidad has not worked, is not working, and will not work, and we take God out of our thoughts and accept bills that suggest that, we will be in quicksand instead of a quagmire. So, how do we move ourselves? What mechanism do we use to get ourselves out of this place where we are dependent on some man in Trinidad to say, here now, I'm going to give you this, or I'm going to give you that. We have to get to a place where we understand social equity and social equality. Social equality is a state where all people in a society have the same rights, the same status, and the same sets of responsibilities. It means that people are treated fairly and given equal opportunities without discrimination. Social equality, therefore, requires the absence of legally enforced social class, because that is what the budget does, you know. It enforces a superiority of the Trinidadian over the Tobagonian. And they legislate it, and then they police it to make sure that we remain subordinate and could achieve nothing. It requires the absence of discrimination based on an individual's identity. It requires equal access to public goods and social services, equal access to jobs and job opportunities, to education and social activities. Social equality is different from social equity. Social equity recognizes that people have different circumstances. And in this strata that we have built, that Eric and his boys have built in Trinidad and Tobago, there is no doubt that there is an inequity between Tobago and Trinidad, and that we in Tobago therefore have a different set of circumstances, and in recognition of these different circumstances, social equity will require that the government of Trinidad and Tobago allocate resources and opportunities in order for us to reach an equal outcome. That is a theoretical thing, and it may take some studying to understand it. But essentially, we have to get to the place in Tobago where we demand equity. Because Pastor Baines is right. Nobody giving us nothing.
Member, please refer to the member by member.
The member for Bethel, New Grange.
Thank you.
My apologies. Parliament recognize the difference in circumstances between Tobago, Tobagonians, and Trinidad and Trinidadians. And in the both Acts of Parliament, Act of 1980, 1996, Parliament said in 1980, Section 21, Parliament gave us 24 areas of responsibility. In 1996, in Section 43, Parliament told the Cabinet and the people of Trinidad and Tobago that the Cabinet must consider these differences and must allocate budgetary resources because of these differences to bring equality between Tobago and Trinidad. Because Parliament recognized that Tobago's development was laxing far behind. Parliament also recognized that the PNM take all the money from Flora and spend it in Trinidad. They also recognized that in the late 80s, early 90s, they take all the money for the link road and spend it in Trinidad too. What the Parliament didn't recognize, and what we are asking them to recognize now, is that the energy resources in Tobago must accrue to the development of Tobago. But they are afraid, you know. They are afraid to define Tobago properly. The geo-legal definition of Tobago, I'm coining that word, the geo-legal definition of Tobago will give Tobago resources on the Calypso field, resources in Poinsettia, resources in, what they call it, North Coast Marine Area. All that is in Tobago. It will give Tobago Block 24, Block 22, Orchid, that are running pipeline from Orchid to Poinsettia now. And every time the gas bells say chiching, the Secretary of Finance, the Secretary of Education must say, the Secretary of Settlements must say, that is a block of house. Yes. The Secretary of Finance must say that that is 25% of our Heritage and Stabilization Fund. Every time. Because, make no mistake about it, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, when oil and gas was found in Trinidad, Trinidad used all of that resource to build Trinidad to what it is today. All. We ain't going to talk about the thief. But they used all that resource to fund the development of Trinidad. And I want to cut short my speech because sometimes that does go too long. But I want to say that we have to come to the place in Tobago, excuse me, where we come up with a new formula. A new formula for how Tobago's development is financed. The province of Nova Scotia in Canada has a fair share agreement where the energy resources found in Nova Scotia, a major percentage goes to the budget for Nova Scotia. It's not new in the world. The same thing happens in Scotland. These are not new ideas. The people of Tobago have to have the will to say that within this so-called unitary state that we have, this is what we want. This is what we want, and we want nothing else. And the motion today, if the bills are written properly, the motion today will read like this. Whereas the resources in Tobago's geographical space, as defined in section 1(2) of the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago, generates 25% of the national income of Trinidad and Tobago, and whereas the budgetary allocation to the Tobago House of Assembly is only 66% of the allocation requisitioned, notwithstanding income sharing agreement made with the central government, and whereas the shortfall in the allocation stands to impair the delivery of goods and services to the people of Tobago and imperil the standard of living and quality of life of Tobagonians, be it resolved that the House mandates the Executive Council to bring this matter before the Constitutional Division of the Supreme Court of Trinidad and Tobago for expedited hearing. Because we know that the DRC and the FRC are working. Be it further resolved that the court be petitioned to stop the Ministry of Finance from effecting any subventions in the execution of the national budget before this matter is determined. Be it further resolved, if the bills were written correctly, be it further resolved that the court be petitioned to impose legal censure on the central government for the preparation of this egregious wrong on the people of Tobago. Because as the secretary said, the parliament telling them, hey, give us X. And then the cabinet deciding it is X minus 10 for you. Without penalty. Every single year. And they could choose somebody from Digo Martin, they could choose somebody from Penal, they could choose somebody from Ikakas, and we get the same result because we have a stupid law. And so, as I conclude, let me say that despite the shortfalls, despite the challenges, we as an executive determined that the Division of Infrastructure will engage in a massive chocolate cake production from lemons again this year. We will again use a mix of procurement modalities to ensure that Bad Rock Phase 1 is started. We will ensure that the so-called highway in Friendship is completed. We will ensure that we make the best effort we can make to solve the drainage problem in Western Tobago. We will connect Sangsas Hill going through Light and Life to Smithfield. We will complete the crossing of Dutch Fort to Garden Side. And we will do what we've been doing for the last 3 years. Provide employment to Tobagonians as we wait and put the systems in place for the economy to grow out of this doldrum that it is in. And it's not doldrum that we've created, what we have met. And we will continue to provide temporary employment until we can get rid of the PNM in Trinidad. And that time might be closer than we think. Because that, fellow Tobagonians, that is the only way to begin to move Tobago forward. We must move this albatross among the neck, from off the necks of Tobagonians. We must move the George Floyd knee off the necks of Tobagonians. And that is moving the PNM out of office in Port of Spain. So, on behalf of the good people of Scarborough, Mount Grace, who voted to have me here to contribute to the development of Tobago, I want to say thank you very much.
Member for Roxborough, you may join the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. Thank you to my colleagues for the contribution you all made this afternoon in this important house of legislature. I want to particularly recognize the people of Dallaford, Louisdor, Betsy Hope, Roxborough, Argyle, and Kendall for the level of confidence they have reposed in me and their constant desire to see Tobago remove itself from the doldrums of life to a place where we all, East and West, can enjoy a better standard of life. This afternoon, I felt the motion was one that would have lent itself towards that as we contemplate the dwindling finances that have been afforded Tobago. I looked forward to hear meaningful contribution, but I felt as if I was in the grandstand listening to various compositions. Some were what I will call, Deputy Presiding Officer, social commentary. Others were funny calypso. But in this house, I want to remind all of my colleagues, a serious responsibility is placed upon us. That thousands of Tobagonians, not just the 40,000 of us who live here, and the 60,000 of us whose names are on the records, but there are hundreds of thousands of Tobagonians living beyond the 116 square miles of Tobago are interested in this place. I want to begin by telling my colleague, the counselor, for that side over there, be careful on whose shoulders you stand. Be very careful. Be very careful. I wish to remind you something I believe I will get an amen from my colleague over there, and that we once fellowship in the same place. I don't know where he fellowship now, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. But they said in the scriptures that the wise man built his house on the rock. Foundation we're talking about. Yeah? The foolish man built it on the sand. The shifting perspectives of man is not something to lay upon, to build upon. Be very careful. As I sat and I listened, I heard my colleague from, the member from Bethel, New Grange, spoke very spirited. And maybe he was spirited. Not sure what he got in the lunchroom, but he was very spirited. He said that he was mandated to speak. And again, he spoke differently from the person who mandated him to speak. He spoke of full autonomy. Wanted now. But his colleague spoke of autonomy in moderation. Be very careful on whose shoulders you stand. Be very careful on the ground upon which you build. Deputy Presiding Officer, it is said that the GDP for Tobago is about $4,000. Good. That is not really a good sign for Tobago. However, one must understand the context of Tobago in respect to Trinidad and Tobago. I've said it already and I wish to say it again. There is no place legally defined as Trinidad. That was a prehistoric country, Trinidad, that existed prior to 1887. Trinidad existed. But there's no place called Trinidad legally. Legally. I did some law, so I could speak on that with authority. And I challenge anybody to tell me differently. There's no place called Trinidad legally. In our country, there's a country called Trinidad and Tobago. We have to get used to it. That's the name of the country. And there is a subset of that country referred to as a ward defined by law as Tobago. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, you may want to take some notes or ask someone to take some notes for you because these are important information. So when we come here and we stand here and we speak as if we know what we are talking about, I oftentimes squirm in my seat to hear the confusion on that side. When they mix up autonomy and self-determination, they are not singing from the same handbook. Somehow, they are singing from different songbooks. When I went to church religiously, I sang from the Seventh-day Adventist hymn book. Now, when I attend different churches, I recognize there are different hymn books. So hymn number 400 in the Seventh-day Adventist book may mean one thing, but 400 in the Anglican book is a different thing. 400 in the Methodist book is a different thing. 400 in the Baptist book is a different thing. In Jehovah's Witness book, it's a different thing. They all have their own independent book across there because they are independents really and truly. That's what they are. And it is showing. The thing is nauseating to listen to the level of arguments. It's nauseating. Very, very nauseating. I have to relieve myself to go and use the restroom out there very often to vomit because I couldn't take all of it down. There's a lot going on across there. It's like going around in merry-go-round, it turns your head upside down. We need to settle down and for once agree on a few fundamentals. First of all, we need to understand what Tobago is. Tobago is a ward, and you will always be treated as a ward. That's what we are, a ward. Queen Victoria did that in 1898 when she further amended the Trinidad and Tobago Act. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I seek your assistance from the noise across. It sounds like a rat baby, some very simple but irritating noise. Could you please? Thank you.
Member, continue your presentation.
Thank you. One of the things I dislike is rats. Don't like it, please. It crawls my skin and throws me off. We need to understand what Tobago is. Tobago is a ward seated in the country called Trinidad and Tobago. Tobago has no legal status except that which it finds within Trinidad. We have none. And so the fight that we are fighting has to be done from Trinidad within the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. We cannot fight that from here. Here's a good place for us to make up our minds. But the only place where laws are made in this country is in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. If we want more money, we have to have our voices heard in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, where budgetary decisions are made and money are allocated. I think I've gotten over that. Now let me speed on a bit. We have no GDP of our own, by the way, none. Because Tobago doesn't exist by itself. It's a ward. It's an arm of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Presiding Officer, I heard my colleagues from Bagatelle.
Member, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer.
Yes.
Not madam.
Sorry, sir. I apologize for that.
Okay.
Apologize for that, sir. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, my colleague, the member from Bagatelle, Bacalet, with responsibility for agriculture, spoke of, well, she took off from where my colleague, Petala and Roberts, the councillor, spoke of. 44 projects. They labeled that. I don't know how they came up with those projects, on what priority basis, if it's a pick-a-pan situation, or if it is just a raffle situation. I'm not sure, or a punch board situation. But my colleague took over from what she said and spoke extensively about mega farms. Mega farms is a big jump for Tobago. We can't even control the little plots we have. Some years ago, A.N.R. Robinson, our Prime Minister, the former A.N.R. Robinson, along with the NAR team, sought to create things like the cow farm and pig farm and all those type of stuff. They were busy setting up Tobago to become a more developed and agriculture-focused society. And so they have things like in Goldsboro, a shade room, something like that. They try to create that there. And there are a number of things that they try to do. All have failed. That's failed under the former people and under the current people. It has failed, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. And if you want to move from failure and go straight to mega farms, what would be feeding the mega farms? Where would they get crops from? Where would they get plants from? Where would they get animals from? We are going down a road of failure. Because if there's no supply of animals to the local farmers, no supply of crops for the local farmers, where are we going with this mega farm? That's pie in the sky. Speed on. From that, I want to come right down to the Goodwood, Charlottesville Pavilion, and the Culloden playing field. These things should have been done from day one. I don't know who they think they are, my colleagues, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. They are not God. They can't speak and make things happen. It takes time to get work done in Tobago, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. The people in Goodwood are frustrated with the level of development insofar as a pavilion. And having abandoned that project for over 3 years, they are now saying they're going to complete it. They have compromised the structure. Yeah? When we look at Charlottesville Pavilion, that should have been done a long time ago. The Culloden playing field, there's no playing field there. That should have been done a long time ago. Now that they have Mr. Deputy President Officer, the rats are acting up again on that side. We need some kind of pest control. It's really disturbing me. I'm very quiet when people are making their contribution. I'm hearing some fine songs, very irritating, crawling my skin. Thank you, sir.
Members, I'd like you all to be quiet so the member can bring his presentation.
Thank you, sir. You're very protective, I must say that. Balance, indeed. Let me come all the way down to tourism. You know, well, before I come to that, I hear them speaking about some agricultural institute. They are throwing all these things around the place to fool Tobagonians. Agricultural institute, as if it's a magic again. We have sat in this hollow house and we heard about the Public Service Academy. Where is it? Where is it? It's nowhere. We have heard so much about education and having on that side over there persons who consider themselves to be leading individuals in the Department of Education, paying such a little homage to the island's institutions of education. I am worried about our future. I just want to put that on the table. Then I come to tourism. We have tried. I must say we have tried. And I want to personally give my colleague, the councillor, Tashia Boris councillor, a round of applause. She has tried. I can't blame her. She tried. She has tried every year to do things differently. But in as much as she tried, I've looked at Tobago carefully, how we moved in 2022 from a Wonder Lost magazine. I never regarded magazine as anything significant, really. But nevertheless, we got a silver award from them in 2022. Then look at the progression. In 2023, we got a bronze award, third. In 2024, we got an All Iron award. That's fourth place, All Iron. Look at Barbados. Never ever within that period on Wanderlust magazine, never ever featured on it. But you know what? Look at this. Last year, we had 61 calls to our island, cruise ship calls, so called 61, let me make sure I get it right. I know she's gonna, my colleague correct me on that there. Yes, we had 61 calls to the port in Scarborough last year, 61 calls. 100,000 persons came to our island. This year, you know how much calls we got after receiving that bronze award? You know, we thought at least you might have gotten close. We only got 44 calls to the port in Scarborough, representing 40,000 persons coming to our island. Now that is rejection. And they can't blame the PNM for that. They can't blame anybody for that. But it's just that we have failed to make Tobago more attractive. Yeah? Let me tell you this. Right next door to us is Barbados. Right? And Barbados is reaching almost 700,000. You hear me? Persons. Make it correct. At least, yeah. Barbados is reaching 398 compared to calls to the airport. 398 calls for cruise ships to the airport, while we have only received 44. In other words, 40,000 persons coming to our shores via cruise ships this year, while 700,000 is coming to Barbados port via cruise ship this year. Well, this year into next year. They never made Wanderlust magazine. It doesn't matter what you have on paper, what you have on the wall, which school you have matriculated from. It's what you have in your brain. It's what people can deduce when they look at you, when they evaluate you. When people come to our island, it's what they can deduce. Is Tobago a wonderful place? Are there things to do in Tobago? Have we taken care of the little things we have? There are still places that lack attention.
Saying that while I have a team that stands and sits on my shoulders, I have always stood on Christ Jesus the rock, and that I was never standing on the shoulders of my former political leader, because that was sinking and shifting sand. Because if I was only standing on those shoulders, this team would not be here today. Amen. Our presence here is a testament that ultimately Christ Jesus is the rock that we stand on. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I listened carefully to the two members opposite who spoke previously, the minority leader and the member for Roxborough Argyle. I also listened to the excellent contributions coming from this side of the House, and I have some concerns. Some concerns I wish to address before sharing some matters that I have originally penned to speak to the House about. I am concerned that in one instance, the minority leader's instance, we have more or less a presentation that we have heard before, that clearly somebody wrote for the minority leader, and he has no choice but to read. And so notwithstanding the salient points made by the Secretary for Finance, Trade and the Economy, notwithstanding itemizing 44 priority areas, the minority leader spoke to none of those areas, not one of those areas, did not even speak to how these areas will impact the people he represented, because he just simply had to read the script that was emailed or WhatsApp to him this morning from Port of Spain. And then in the other instance, from Roxborough Argyle, we have someone who was clearly not prepared, and so we got a mismatch of a misunderstanding of the correlation between autonomy and self-determination, picking out selectively some areas of the 44. To his credit, he spoke to a few areas of the 44, and amidst all of that, a lot of hot air, but really no substance. And the sad thing is that regardless of which side of this horseshoe you sit, we were all placed in this house because Tobagonians feel as though all of us have a responsibility together to seek Tobago's collective interest. And if that's the kind of preparation we get from the other side for presentation in this house, I think Tobagonians are watching, they are wise, and they will make the right decision when the time comes. I want to correct some misinformation placed in this piece. The minority leader said that business is at an all-time low, things are difficult and hard. Well, I wish to say to the minority leader that I can furnish him with the telephone contact of the Minister of Finance, Minister Imbert in Trinidad, so he can call him up and tell him that he mash up the economy of the entire country of Trinidad and Tobago. And it would appear as though the term or the phrasing of choice is unmitigated gall. But the member had the hypocritical and unmitigated gall to stand here and talk about people in the tourism sector not getting access to Forex, when it was his Prime Minister, his political leader, after promising to not close down Petrotrin, proceeded to close it down to save his friend from going to jail, and so the country does not get sufficient Forex revenues. And then after doing that, notwithstanding all the excellent proposals that we send for the country to support the tourism sector in Tobago, which can become a true alternative and provide the kind of Forex needed, we get $1 million to market Tobago. Interestingly, the member for Roxborough Argyle spoke about Barbados. Barbados is spending $40 million to market Barbados, and the central government gives us $1 million TT dollars. Let's do that for comparison when we are talking the numbers. I want to go further. The minority leader, who I believe was a director on the TTAL board at some point in the past, as of August 2018, should have known and should know that in order for us to get flights to Tobago, the Tobago House of Assembly pays. We pay. And so when we make a request from the Minister of Finance for Tourism, and we get on average about $30 million, that is to pay for those flights, to pay staff, to do marketing, to do all the beautiful things Roxborough Argyle wants us to do in all of those forts around the island, to pay for influencers to come here, to use a myriad of strategies for which the Tobago House of Assembly is just never provided with the resources. And I want to add something else to the mix. In the Caribbean region, there are two territories that do not pay for flights: Jamaica and Trinidad. All the other Caribbean territories, including Barbados and Grenada, they enter into agreements, we enter into agreements with foreign airlines in order for flights to come here. So when you see BA land here, we're paying. When Condor lands here, we are paying. And on top of that, I want to share something with this house. We sat in a meeting with Caribbean Airlines, and we came up with an agreement for there to be a direct Toronto to Tobago flight. And notwithstanding it being a national carrier, we agreed that we will pay as we do the foreign entities. Wow. All we have been waiting on is a contract from Caribbean Airlines to finalize and move. And you know what? After we agreed in the room, Caribbean Airlines, in true to form, just went silent and refusing now to give us a contract. And I must ask if that is a cabinet directive. I must ask the members of parliament for Tobago East and West, who are supposed to be standing in defense of Tobago, if that is something they support. In the same way they supported the culling of the domestic flights between Trinidad and Tobago. Because they know that in the absence of international arrivals, that domestic arrivals have buttressed the economy. And you know what's interesting? Post-COVID, after much begging and so on, and they reopened the flights, we got half of the pre-COVID number of flights. And when we look at the data, with just half of the pre-COVID number of flights, we are doing better on domestic arrivals than when they were in office with double the amount of domestic flights. That should tell you something. It is important to also correct something in this space, because tourism is such a fickle area that you don't want to have publicity in a way that destroys the product. The member for Roxborough Argyle spoke almost disparagingly about the victim of a shark bite. Might be 1 in 100 year in Tobago, but a first for Tobago. And let me tell you how far and wide that went. Earlier this year, the House of Lords, through the Caribbean Council, invited me to an investment forum. The flight I took, or the flight I had took, was KLM. By the time I got to Gatwick, I had no suitcase available for me. So I had to go to the counter to make the claim and to wait. The young lady who was taking the information took my passport, took the form I signed up. And when she saw my address, she said, wait, that's the same place where shark bit a national. In other words, the people there knew.
Member for Roxborough, we are not supposed to clap in the house.
Okay, sorry, sir. I suppose because I'm pointing. I understand.
Continue, member.
In other words, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, the citizens of the UK, our main source market, had that on their news 24/7. They saw the story, and so they too were concerned. So when we were at World Travel Market this year, without invitation from us, without payment or inducement from us, the gentleman shows up with his family to say thank you to the people of Tobago for excellent healthcare, for excellent support. That sends the message that this island is an island that knows how to take care of its visitors. And it also sends the message that regardless of what they say, we can have faith in the healthcare system in Tobago. And then the minority leader also spoke about betrayal of contractors. And that's an interesting one. Because while he's talking betrayal of contractors, I see the Prime Minister friend, one of the contractors that they bat for and defend, just lost in the appeal court for illegal quarrying in Trinidad. And when they talk about betrayal of contractors, that same contractor, after an executive council minute done by former Chief Secretary Hochoy Charles's time, to grant the provision of Green Hill for quarrying, where a fee should be paid. That same Tobago contractor who does pretend to be loyal and patriotic to Tobago, quarry out all the materials, and the THA never receive a cent of royalties. So who betrayed who? Who betrayed the people of Tobago in that regard? This government has done some things positively for the people of Tobago that Tobagonians never thought were even possible. And so even with budgetary constraints, this government found a way to improve and increase the limits for social services. We found a way to take the people in CPEP and URP, who are among the lowest paid on the island, and increase their salary without even waiting on Trinidad to do so. We found a way to be able to pay for school feeding at what, $43–44 million, when we only receive half of that, so all of our children can have access to food. To pay the maxi taxis, they're not even sending enough, and on top of paying them, this administration found a way to give a $25,000 grant to all our maxi taxis to get them maxis up to speed. And that was done to the extent that I received a pre-action protocol letter from one in Trinidad, Mr. Ravi, who has sent everybody pre-action protocol letters, basically saying, how come Tobago maxis get that and Trinidad maxis ain't get that? That is because PNM is not in charge in Tobago, and so you have a government in Tobago that cares about people. You can't get that down in Trinidad. I also want to correct some bits of misinformation from the member for Roxburgh Argyle, who spoke about mega farms. The secretary spoke about mega farming as opposed to mega farms. Mega farms, in the truest definition of the term, cannot work in Tobago given our land size, given our terrain, but we can do mega farming, which is the process of collating or bringing together several holdings from 7 parts of the island with several farmers to be able to treat with our food productivity or food production issues. That's mega farming. That's the difference. And we are well on our way where that is concerned. I must hasten quickly to address misinformation in the public space about the Goodwood Pavilion, Shallaville Pavilion, and I will also hasten to talk about the Culloden playing field. With regards to Goodwood and Shallaville, in January 2023, UDCOT, out of nowhere, after being paid systematically, every fiscal, sent to us and said they are no longer going to do those projects. This is January 2023. In other words, they say, do what they want, we stop and we go on. There had to be a handing over process, a legal process by which we reacquired those properties and then re-engage to get those projects restarted. That handing over process started in September last year. As a matter of fact, I want to read on the records this correspondence to which I was CC'd, dated September 18, 2023, just a little over a year ago. And this correspondence says, the Urban Development Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago Limited wishes to advise that UDCOT has established a committee to manage the finalization of the project handover process for the following projects: Bacolet Indoor Sporting Facility, Goodwood Pavilion, Shallaville Community Center and Pavilion, Turpin Bend Infrastructural Upgrade. The UDCOT handover committee comprises the following persons: Ivan Daly, Achikemba Phillips, Dwayne Murray, and Christine Tahal. In other words, the process to hand over only started in September last year. And it's only this calendar year that we actually got the projects so that we could go back and execute and finish them. So it's not like this administration got them from UDICOT and we just refused to do anything on them. The truth is, UDICOT stalled us to this point. And now UDICOT is writing for outstanding monies. They want that fast, and they took the dead slow time to hand over the projects. Only this year those projects were duly handed over. As for Culloden, all the way back in 2009, the Tobago House of Assembly started to purchase an estate in Culloden, paid a down payment of $1.9 million or 10% of the estate value for the land. Culloden Golden Land area is one of those areas that the THA does not own land. There aren't state lands in the area. And so to do any sort of public work, we have to acquire real estate. And so we came into office, we saw the matter. The reason for the delay, no fault of the former administration. There was a court case that included the bank, FCB, and that court case only got concluded in late 2022. That court case was concluded at the Privy Council. So you could imagine that case going through the whole system until it got to the Privy Council. When the matter was concluded, I reached out to FCB. I said, look, we are still interested in the property. FCB had two choices: to sell us the property at a new market value, or to give us back our 10% down payment, because a long time had elapsed. However, with successful negotiation, we got FCB to agree to keep the price at the same 19 million that it was in 2009, keep our 10% down payment. We paid the rest, and we have completely purchased that property to the extent that the Tobago House Assembly, unlike in some previous years, actually has a deed in hand to show that we own the property. And the process of land purchasing includes doing the title search, ensuring that everything is okay with the land, getting the deed done, getting it registered, and you know how long it takes now to register a new deed. Again, that's P&M action. Why it's taking that long? So the people of Culloden getting a playing field in this is because this administration was diligent enough, caring enough to say, let's acquire real estate and give the people of Golden Lane, Lekoto, something to be proud of. Give them some access. And then, final thing I want to correct is the minority leader spoke about contractor in Argyle being Trinidad. In fact, he spoke about two things about the contractor in Argyle. One, there are two projects occurring in Argyle as we speak. Two multi-million-dollar projects occurring in your area, Roxborough, Argyle. One is the existing Lamy Road. That project that the minority leader claims.
Remember, turn back on your mic.
Sorry? So I didn't realize the mic came off. Yes, that contract, the minority that claims that that contractor can't finish the work. It's not the contractor can't finish the work. The contractor did the bridge, did the draining, has prepared the road, but the contractor essentially is sort of trying to time the final leg of that project, which is paving that road, with the farmlands development that the Office of the Chief Secretary is doing, and that is nearing completion. That is one. The second deliberate lie being told is that that contractor was issued a design-build contract by settlements. That is untrue. It is not a design-build finance modality. It is actually a public-private partnership modality. And it is one where the firm builds the homes, the THA pays the firm absolutely nothing, and the firm benefits from the THA database to be able to pick persons to give the units. The persons who are awarded the units or homes, they will pay directly to the contractor for the homes, and it's just that in the arrangement, the THA locks the contractor in or locks the firm in to a reasonable price so that the people on our database can actually afford it. When you look at what is given to settlements, how much houses could be laid? The ministry in Trinidad is given hundreds of millions. Hundreds of millions on the DP vote. Settlements, 2 million to be able to build homes. 2 million. You know what construction prices in Tobago are like? What construction material prices in Tobago are like? And so, I think the minority leader mixed up the two contractors in Argyle. Because there's a second contract in Argyle, that's farmlands development, and the farmland development vote has always been under office of the chief secretary. And so we looked last fiscal, well, we started in 2022 to design the project. And at the town hall meeting we held in Roxborough, this is something I spoke to the people about. And that project is well underway. That's a $28 million project for which Mr. Owen Smith, who is Tobagonian, is actually doing that project. And this is not a design build finance. This is design build and we pay. They were given mobilization, they've been paid intermittently as per the contract. There's not even design build finance. And in that project, it will be the most sustainable farmland development project in the entire country. I visited it some weeks ago. And the next time I'm visiting, I will invite the member for Roxborough Argyle, so you can see what nice things look like. And when I visited, each of the farming lots already had kiosks already installed with their own solar panels, with their own batteries retaining energy, the ability to plug in a refrigerator 24/7 to use power tools. Every individual farm had their own kiosk. Solar panels along the roadway. Drainage completed. They did a detention pond completed. They're just about to drill 2 wells. WASA is coming in to run the lines. And so WASA indicated where the sleeves have to go. And so the next phase is concreting that road that will bring us to the existing Lamy Road, which will then be paved. And so the people of Argyle will benefit from 2 multi-million-dollar projects in their area. And I want to go further. I thought the Secretary for Infrastructure would have done that. Go further and explain why this design build modality is one of the options utilized.
Remember, you have 5 minutes of speaking time.
Sure, no problem. It's being utilized. When you have a system where you have scarcity of resources, you have to find somebody who have the capital to invest. The government then takes a longer and slower time to pay back, and that person who is investing must come with capital and engage Tobago's smaller contractors who will benefit from doing work as subcontractors with monies that the government just doesn't have. So when you're looking at projects 70 million and so forth, design build finance, and when you look at a project through Friendship, where over 80% of the content is local Tobagonian, the people who pave the roads, all of that, local Tobagonian, then you can't begin to quantify how they benefited from external finances coming into the Tobago space. The THA, as a matter of fact, ain't paid them not yet. Because the project has to be completed. Because it's design build finance. But in the time I have, I want to speak to about 3 or 4 areas. One, in the upcoming fiscal under the office of the Chief Secretary, we will accelerate our digitization program. We started with e-tender platform. You will hear from the Secretary of Health how our social services are moving in that light. We are in the testing phase, whereby all of our executive council and all of our minutes and so forth is completely on digital platforms. This Assembly legislature has almost completed, about 80% complete, with the digitization of the records of this House. And we are just getting started with digitizing our HR and accounts platforms. That is critical for efficiency in the Tobago space. Secondly, because the Office of the Chief Secretary, through the Chief Administrator, has responsibility, devolved responsibility for HR matters within the public service. And I know the member for Roxbury Argyle will love this, because I think sometimes he gets nostalgic about his days in the union. I know you will love this. But because OCS has a singular and signal responsibility for the public service on the island, we have developed a program called Public Officer Subsidized Housing, or POSH. And this is designed that will be able to take the internal clients or the workers, the public officers of the THA, out and away from the settlement platform where we have a tonload of thousands of people applying, and treat the public officers in a special way. We have a situation where if you are working in settlements, for example, you can't get in, you can't apply. And so you are there helping people get grants, helping people get house, helping people get land, but you could never ever apply yourself, and you're in need. And so this takes care of them. And that's important because we believe a motivated workforce will lead to greater efficiencies in this space, greater productivity. We also have, under OCS, the autonomy project. And member for Roxbury Argyle, please, I am begging you, stop mixing up the correlation between autonomy and self-determination. Yeah. They are inextricably linked. They are not two terms so separate from each other that there is no relation. You said it yourself, that Tobago right now, from this house, can't just determine for itself what type of government we want or how we should be governed. That is done in Trinidad. You know what that means? We don't have the autonomy to have self-determination. Autonomy precedes self-determination. And so what we really want out of our MPs in Trinidad, and I realize, again, nice campaign from your Roxbury Argyle, like you made a pitch for your own candidacy in Tobago East. What we really want from MPs down in Port of Spain is that push for Tobagonians to be given the wherewithal, to be given the autonomy to actually decide for ourselves what we want. And that's why I've said that maybe we should reconsider having all of those things in the bill and having a leaner, slimmer bill that really just gives Tobago the authority or the autonomy we want, and we come home to our people, we campaign actively, 3 parties, we campaign, and Tobagonians decide who have the better plan and go with that. And that is self-determination in action. So when we use the two terms, it's not to confuse anybody, it's because they are related. One is mother and one is son. They are inextricably linked. So stop trying to make it look as though they are so distant from each other.
Your speaking time has elapsed. Member, the same coverage that you would like for yourself, I wish to extend it, please.
You want to stand on my shoulder?
Deputy Presiding Officer, I beg to move that the speaking time for the member for Palataville Lansame Space Night be extended by a further 10 minutes.
Members, the question is that 10 minutes of additional speaking time be given to the member for Palataville Lansame Speyside. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? The ayes have it. Member, you have 10 minutes of additional speaking time.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. But as we're talking about this autonomy question, just this morning, while this house was sitting and getting started, I was there sitting in with the attorneys at the Privy Council. Because the question that came for the Privy Council for the THA today, 5 hours away from where we are, is a question surrounding Milshelf and who has right to do what. And in that court case, what is essentially being interrogated is really the fact that Tobago has limited autonomy. Bad deal aside, that was a horrible deal. That was a stupid deal. That was a deal designed to give PNM financiers money. But bad deal aside, the matter we were interrogating this morning before the Privy Council, as I sat there, listened to the attorneys, and exchanges are happening between the Senior State Council and myself, and we were just looking at the case and doing our best to see if we could get a ruling in our favor, notwithstanding it's an inherited case. Is really this question of Tobago once and for all getting not just office, but the power to actually govern ourselves. And I want to be categorically clear about this autonomy project, that there are 4 areas the bills before Parliament must have, or else they will be rejected. Those 4 areas are: 1, there must be equality of status between the island of Trinidad and the island of Tobago, and we want that stated clearly in the Constitution, so that we will not be a ward of anybody anyway. Number 2, there must be an acceptable, internationally recognized definition of what is Tobago, and that can't be what the AG or what some minister in Trinidad feel Tobago should be defined as. That must include over 116 square miles, the body of water or the marine space surrounding Tobago, or that marine space that Tobago brings to the archipelagic state called Trinidad and Tobago. It must also include our airspace. Regardless of where the jurisdiction of a new Tobago House of Assembly will lie, there must be a proper, acceptable definition of Tobago in the law. To not do so, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, and to proceed to tell Tobagonians this is all you are responsible for, is to inadvertently say to the rest of the country that what is not stated as Tobago is Trinidad's. And that is an error that we will not accept. The third area is that we're looking for a federal type system. By the way, these 4 areas, I didn't come up with them. These 4 areas came out of a statement made in the Parliament by the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, when he set the Joint Select Committee into motion to look over the Orwellian bills. So the third area is a federal type system. 2 states, 1 union. Nothing less. The member for Roxford Argyle clearly has other ideas, and I would love to know if the member for Roxford Argyle did any survey with Tobagonians, or what consultations with Tobagonians he's relying on for this premise that maybe we could be an associate state, maybe we could decide for ourselves if we want to go independent. Because the thing about self-determination is that it comes in degrees. People could decide practically what levels that they want. But what we're relying on is the fact that Tobago not so long ago had the most extensive set of consultations. It's PNM do the consultations in Tobago, under former Chief Secretary. And then now, we're in 2024, they're looking to turn their back on what Tobagonians said they want. They set up a constitutional committee to Tobago that the Prime Minister picked. And after Tobagonians tell the committee what they want, they still go back to Trinidad and trying to push and force on Tobago what Tobagonians never said they want. So Tobagonians have always looked for a federal type system. And there's no need to reinvent the wheel. We heard about Nova Scotia from out of Canada this morning. You could go to the UK with the model of devolution of powers. Right here in the Caribbean, in the Commonwealth Caribbean, St. Kitts Nevis. Nevis has a state government. They have a federal system there. There's no need to invent the wheel. And so this notion that you're asking for too much, wait, we go figure it out as we go along. Come on. Since 1977, we had the first motion in the Parliament about this matter. If you go and read Robinson's speech, member for Roxford Argyle, it is literal and based on the premise that every Tobagonian has as a human right, the right to self-determination. We are here, approaching 44 years of the THA, and we're still making noise for the same things that were posited since 1977. And you know why? It's because the only time really and truly when Tobago gets any movement on this autonomy question is when PNM not in power in Tobago. Tobago had to vote out PNM and send Robinson and Murray down there. And in 1996 again, it was not PNM. That is sent two representatives that were not PNM. So if Tobago want to get anywhere with this autonomy thing, they need to change who down in Port of Spain. Because sending dumb dogs to Port of Spain cannot help Tobago. And the fourth area that the bills must have is that the bills must give Tobago and Tobagonians responsibility to formulate and to implement policy on all matters affecting our way of life. We're not interested in trying to affect the way of life of Trinidadians. Their central government will do that for them. But we want, in the same way we could give grants in areas that don't exist in Trinidad, we want to impact our people's lives in the most positive manner. And what is painful, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, is after we sat in this house, we were on the other side, three of us on the other side. Roxwell Argyle, I'm so sorry that you jumped off the ship. You chose to jump off the ship. The anchor didn't hold you. But we sat in this house and all of us unanimously agreed to send a bill down to Parliament. Right? And although we on the minority side felt this ain't going nowhere, we said, listen, it's a good thing. Tobago needs to manage its own marine parks. We have a tourism product that is hinged on sustainability. Let me send this bill down. We'll give them the support. We gave them the support. I could tell you, I went down to Buku, talk to the fishermen. Some of the fishermen and them hated some aspect of the bills. We had to try to talk to them, coax them over, look at some of the issues they have, come to the house, debate the issue. We sent the bills down to Parliament. That was November 2021. We are now in November 2024. And up to now, the bill can't make the Parliament floor. Clearly, Tobago business is not priority for the national government. And so if we have to treat the issues that are important to Tobagonians, then we have to do it ourselves. We have to have the autonomy or the power or the authority to do it ourselves. We can't depend on them. And clearly, we can't depend on PNM either.
Remember, you have 3 more minutes of
That's right. And so, Deputy Presiding Officer, when we send and we ask and we say, look, you know what is important for us in education? Having a new Scarborough Secondary School. The school going away in the sea. We brought in Caribbean Development Bank. Well, they recommended we work with Caribbean Development Bank. We went, we looked at the different sites. We had a recommendation of which site is better for the school. We developed an end-user brief that included the teachers, students, parents, all kind of fancy things. CDB come back and say, well, we feel comfortable, we could give you a 500 million as a loan to be able to handle the billing of Scarborough Secondary School, a smart school. When we went to the Minister of Finance, he said, look, we just build school in Trinidad for 250 million. I can't agree with CDB and taking a loan from CDB for 500 million. I said, Minister, we can't build a school in Tobago for 250 million. Cost of construction is higher in Tobago. So if you want to build it and fund it yourself, you have to go up on the amount. I said, meet you at least 300 million or so, right? And we had verbal agreement. We're preparing the land and doing everything. You know how much is sent to build Scarborough Secondary School? And I want the parents and the teachers and the students of Scarborough Secondary, the alumni, to know that when they see them with people walking around in their place, ask them where the money for Scarborough Sec. $500,000 to build a new school. 500,000. So our children ain't good enough to get a proper school. The size, the acreage, we're close to 27 acres. That money can't even fence that. The most you can do with that is try to do some land development work with that. And that is the kind of treatment that we have received. We go again, we're supposed to receive grant funding from IDB. Grant funding. A letter was sent from IDB to the Ministry of Housing dated June 25th, 2024. And in that letter, they just asked for a non-objection letter from the ministry, and they wanted a non-objection letter by July 1st, my birthday. Today is now what, the 28th of November, and up to now the ministry refused to do the non-objection letter. We can't even get a grant. That is what PNM stop. And Secretary of Finance, I want to close by telling you this. You see, the monies that Stuart Young going up and down, trying to get some ITOF.
Remember, you can't refer to the ministers by his name.
You can't refer to?
And your speaking time has elapsed.
All right. Don't expect that money, eh? Because PNM wicked.
Member for Common Pleasant, you may join the debate.
A pleasant good afternoon, everyone. Sorry. All right, good. It's good to follow the chief when you're on his side, eh? Members of this House, let me first thank the people of Bukuman, Pleasant, and Canaan, on whose strength I stand. They have given me this opportunity to stand in this August chamber to deliberate on issues Tobago. Let me welcome everyone who is listening to the debate. I want to single out Miss Lewis in the public gallery. Is she there? Yes. She carries a beautiful first name. Is it Anthurian? Yes, yes. And she is a bishop student prepping for youth Tobago House of Assembly debate, and she thought it best to come to the house to witness the house in action. And I'm happy today she got a sample of everything. I'm happy Mr. Representative for Roxborough sat in, and she was able to witness him get replies to his concerns. So welcome, my goodly sister. She's my archery coach. Right, so we're pressing on. I must thank my family and my support base. When I said family, some names came to mind apart from Craig and Grant. We have Duncan, we have Richardson, Coker, and the other 37 names which I wouldn't repeat. Should I exhaust those names, you'll discover truly all that we are one family. Yeah? So we are in the House, and the goodly Secretary for Finance presented a motion for consideration, one that we definitely will support, looking at the prioritizing of the allocation for Tobago coming out of the budget presentation of the Minister of Finance in Trinidad. Weaponizing monies against Tobago is nothing new in this fiscal year. Last night I was listening to some comments and budget presentation from as way back as 2016, when the then PNM administration was admitting that the allocation was not sufficient. However, they were willing to work with it. And that tune always changed depending on who was running central government. But on this side, we will not give up, we will not surrender our demand for our just due as an island government running this island of Tobago. While I was sitting here, call this inspiration from the goodly member for Bethel New Grange, a biblical analogy came to mind. There's a gentleman in the Bible who fasted for 40 days. And when I saw the 40 days, there's also a belief in biblical terminology that says, in prophetic language, you could interpret a day for a year. And he fasted for 40 days before he confronted the evil that was to come. A day for a year would take us from 1980 to 2020. And a day for a year would suggest that was 40 years. And when he confronted this enemy, the enemy sought to make him offers, to have him side with him on issues. But all the offers he made was to offer him things that he already owned. You get your agreement. He told him, do this and I'll give you that. And when I hear certain people in political space telling Tobagonians, do this and I'll give you that, I couldn't help but strike the parallel. That evil force was trying to convert the Son of the living God to follow his way. The analogy was just on point in my opinion. And I do not subscribe to the view that we are twin islands. I see us as two islands reaching towards something special, but it's just that one is behind the other. I was in Monterville last week, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, and saw a yacht moving across the bay with a little bomb boat being dragged behind. And anywhere that yacht chose to go, that boat had to go along with him. And it reminded me of the way our unitary state is functions. Some people choose to use the parallel of husband and wife. And I definitely am not in agreement with that because I'm not on the wife's side in this case. So what do we have here? We have budget after budget coming to the Tobago House of Assembly. We analyze the budget. We respectfully submit them to central government. They look at our budget. And I was able to pull some figures. And when I look at the 10-year experience of the Tobago journey, from 2016 to 2025, I did a quick mathematics that shows that Tobago actually got for development programs on paper $2.8 billion towards our development over 10 years. And we actually requested of central government $18.3 billion. We actually get 15% of what we asked for over the last 10 years. And it says something. It says that our development on the island of Tobago is not a priority as far as central government is concerned. It says that 4.03 is enough. But then there is another challenge to the 4.03. You do not always get 4.03 because at the end of a fiscal, because the monies do not come to the island on time and at the stipulated period, which is a 3-month period. Have you ever been owed monies and the person chose to give you money in bits and pieces? Somehow at the end of the period, you could never realize the dreams you had for the money. Yeah? Somebody owe you $1,000, and instead of giving you $1,000, they give you 100 every week. And at the end of the period, at the end of 10 weeks, you can't see where the money has gone. And this is what is happening with the way our monies are received in Tobago. And this is something that is working against us. So at the end of a fiscal, we could never really realize what we want. And though I'm not the Secretary for Finance, I'm here long enough to understand. And as somebody who has been in the private sector, I understand how overdrafts work. And the fact that we have to continually rely on our overdraft in the absence of monies being allocated on time means, of course, there is a cost because the overdraft will generate interest. So as an island, we continue to agonize for our just due. That brought something else to my consciousness. The fact that monies never come on time, which is against the law. I was looking at the 6.8 in the proposed bill for the proposed autonomy bill. And I'm saying, if you cannot honor us in how you deal with 4.03, how will you honor us with 6.8? There is no guarantee that we'll get our monies on time. There's no guarantee that we'll actually get 6.8. And so when I heard the Goodly Chief Secretary, the member for Lands for Me, speak to the 4 main points of the autonomy bill, although we came here just to discuss the budget and the reprioritization of the budget, we cannot discuss it in absence of really looking at the whole autonomy conversation. Equality of status, a true definition of Tobago, federal type system, and so on. Now, some of my colleagues said they were not going to be long, yet they exhausted their 40 minutes. And I feel compelled to show them today what it means when they say it wouldn't be long. The funny thing is, as it is, I am not seeing anything on the horizon to suggest that when you move the Tobago allocation from 4.03 to 6.8, it is based on an increase in GDP. So we have an economy which the Minister of Finance always speaks in glowing terms about, yet he begins with glowing terms and ends with sorrows. So it's easy to see that if the 6.8 could be allocated with the acceptance of the autonomy bill as presented, then we could get it now. We could get it now, unless over the next year there is some windfall of income to hit the country that will make the 6.8 plausible. But we could get it now, and not just the 6.8, there's so much more we could get now. And that's why we need to put our feet down on this autonomy matter and really agonize for it. We need to do whatever we need to do to get it. Because without it, we will continually be given bits and pieces of what is our right until our grandchildren move on. So, my goodly Deputy Presiding Officer, Tobago stands on the edge one more time, and I must say I'm happy to be in the House in this season in Tobago's history. It is my hope and prayer that by the time I leave this House, this autonomy dream would be realized. In the book of Matthew, chapter 4, and verse 10, as I conclude, after 40 days of fasting and prayer, which in my prophetic eye ended in 2020, we are in the season now after the temptations. And to end the temptations, the Master used some very compelling words. He said, "Get thee hence, Satan." If my parallel stands true, the people of Tobago need to understand where we are, where we've been, and not just listen to what any sweet talk anybody has to say. I was privileged on my journey here to speak to the pretty little things. And that analogy I used back then spoke to the fact that in an effort to get people to sell out each other in the African historical story of our ancestors, they gave them pretty little things. And in exchange, they would sell out their own friends and relatives to be kidnapped and brought to the Caribbean. And even now, today, that is being used as a means of getting the masses of Tobagonians to subscribe to something tricky and something deceptive. I quote Matthew chapter 4 with confidence. That's right. That particular passage, and I do not want to get into the judgment that is allotted to the Almighty. I do not want to get into that stage. But you must be able to call a spade a spade. And when as an island, we continue to go through, now people don't even understand this morning what they're fighting for. All that is connected to the autonomy story. Should we get the allocations we deserve? I was explaining to a young lady recently, and she was saying, why can't she get her morning walk? I said, listen, I say when we build new spaces, when we build new carriageways, there'll be a need for maintenance workers. There'll be a need for people to keep these places in prime condition. If we have nothing new on the island, why are we bringing on new workers? And the Tobagonian need to understand, and I want the Tobagonian to really understand that. As the island grows, then the demand for jobs will grow. And not just to be morning workers, but there is a need for contribute to this debate.
Member for Lambo Lowlands, you may join the debate.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Thank you, colleagues. I must say thanks to the people of Lambo Lowlands. I don't know if it's on the shoulder or on the head or wherever I stand, but putting me here to represent you in this honorable house, and by extension, the people of Tobago. Deputy Presiding Officer, it's a little difficult for people with a few words like me to come this late into the debate. Hey, Chief Secretary used up 3/4 of the words. 2 pastors use up the next quarter. So it's really a limited field, so it already says that I will be very short. If we had nothing else world class, then we said that is a world class facility. It actually is. You know, I sat there with some people the other day who came for a regional tournament. And every one of them came up and offered congratulations for this facility and expressed their interest in coming back to play. So, some people might think we're doing something wrong, but other people actually think we're doing it right. It's like 2 guys at a table with a 6. One see a 6, one see a 9. Who is you to tell me what I see? I see Tobago under this administration progressing to heights that has never been reached. I'm going quickly to the refurbishment and upgrade works on the Shaw Park Highlands. Deputy Presiding Officer, in this space, when we talk about crime, we talk about all the problems we face. The Division of Community Development, Youth Development and Sport has a critical role to play to try to have these facilities in working condition whereby sometimes when your children are not around you, you actually know where they are. And they could get involved in constructive ways if we have the relevant facilities that they could engage constructively in. This proposed upgrade to Shaw Park, there is interest, a lot of interest, in having regional tournaments there. And let me just say, I want to tip my hat again to the Office of the Chief Secretary for making Shaw Park Cultural Complex available. For the first time in the history of Tobago, we had the Tobago Basketball League starting and will be completed indoors. So it doesn't matter if rain fall, if sunshine, we could play. You know our road march there, they say, we jamming still? Yeah, and don't care what happens, we playing still. I want to go a little further down about the Culloden playing field. The Chief Secretary just indicated that they didn't too long have the deed in your hand. I hear the minority, I don't even know if it's 1 or 2 or 3, talk about the Culloden playing field. And you know, strange enough that we sit here and hear these people talk every day about who breaking the law and what the law said and what the law said. So you want me to go in by Culloden and start level along the place and we are getting no deed? Like, is that what we to do? We had a deed now and we got to take with time and go in. And we got to develop that place so the people of Culloden, Golden Lane, Lekito, whatever, could have a facility that they could call their own. Because we are examining a way right now of putting back some responsibility into the hands of the community. So we're not going to, because we build the facility, try to have maximum control over it. The community has to come to the fore now to play a part. This is a partnership, not the PP one and not the one where the opposition always want to criticize about money. This is one where 2 parties who have a mutual interest will come together and take care of these facilities and keep it the way it should be kept. I just want to touch on a couple of things, Deputy Presiding Officer. You know, it's strange enough when you have people always telling you about the law and the law and the law. You know that the person who does be breaking the law and the law and the law. The minority always talking about the law and who breaking the law. But I don't know if I could ask my colleagues to say if it's yea or nay. But when we have an agreement, and you're supposed to give me releases quarterly, and you choose to give me what I want, you keeping the law? It look on paper like the THA have $205 million for development. But in reality, the overdraft that we have to get to always gives you a different outcome. So in reality, we don't have that. Because when we get the money late, we had to get money from somewhere else to do it on time. And then we had to pay because nothing in this world is for free. Really, 205 million, we don't get the value of that because we have to be paying. Deputy Presiding Officer, I want to go a little further. Over the years, we're talking about at Trinidad and at Tobago. I have my own views about it, but you know, I discipline myself to function within the parameters of the team that I'm a part of. We're talking about, over the years, about this money, what Tobago entitled to, what, you know, I had reason to sit and talk with some fellas on the block, because partly that is where I spent most of my time before I got into active politics. And they raised the talk and I had to explain to them. When they talk about jobs and when they talk about, you know, we ain't getting this and we ain't getting that. I said, this thing is like a transfer. If we don't get the money, we can't give it to you in terms of salaries and whatnot. Right? And you look at Trinidad, you look at Tobago. Deputy Presiding Officer, if you stay away from Trinidad for 2 months, I guarantee you when you go back there, you see something new taking place. Stay away from Tobago for 2 years. And when you come back, you could still blindfold yourself and walk the same way off the boat, turn, you know, KFC there, you know the market over some. You know what, everything there, because nothing has changed. Tobago seemed to be spending an eternity marking time on the spot. And it is not good for us. It is not good for our children. You know, sometimes when you go to Trinidad in any class or some forum, you know they try to embarrass you? Yes, a few years ago I got to do a coaching course in Trinidad. A man asked me if we are internet in Tobago. Although they know it's stupidness they're talking, they use these things to try to belittle you, to let you feel bad about yourself. And what that remind you of? It reminds you of some people who saying they want to take charge of this THA again, take charge of Tobago again. But you know what they're doing? They're using all kind of unorthodox method. Try to make you feel less than yourself. Take, for instance, Deputy Presiding Officer. How much miles Trinidad is from Tobago? I see 20-something. But yet when you get gas fine, you say 47 miles off from Trinidad. I mean. You're so bent on taking Tobago out the equation. So, it's like, you know how to explain to some of the guys on the block, it's like me and you cook. We make 10 dumplings. You only telling me what is my own. So you tell me 2 is my own, so what that mean? 47 miles northeast of Trinidad. If it's 20-something miles to the distance between Trinidad and Tobago, the next 20-something miles, where it fall? But everybody have to put up different things to let Tobago feel that you don't worth nothing, nothing can belong to you. If you have a union, Deputy Presiding Officer, and you tell me that I ain't bringing nothing to this union, why you don't want to let me go? I ain't bringing nothing to the union. I don't have nothing. But you're still holding on to me and you're trying to fool me in some way? Over the years, if Tobago had one chance of getting what is Tobago's own, we wouldn't be sitting here today asking and arguing and begging for what percent and what percent and no budget. Tobago needs to get what is Tobago own, and the only way that could happen is if we define clearly what is Trinidad, what is Tobago. We can't have an arrangement when only you telling me what should happen. That means I have no use at the table. It's better I just sit down, disband the whole THA, and just listen for what you're going to tell me when budget time come around. But you know what? We have a group of people here who say no to that.
Yes.
We have a team that says once we are in the conversation, we will stand up and demand what is ours. We will stand up and demand how we think we should be treated. We should be treated fairly. We have never been treated fairly. And you know what? We're saying that time should come to an end. Tobago should have a fair say and a fair share of what this country holds. If you tell me that it's Trinidad and Tobago, how come I don't have no say in so much of things that have a big effect on how I live? The Chief Secretary, I might beg your help here, Honorable Chief Secretary. This electoral vote and this electoral college and whatever, the THI is saying that to determine who is the president, but that the header who would make law for we and who would sign off on it, that's so? Yes. So imagine, you don't even have a say. Not like in the parliamentary election, when you have 2 seats at East and a West. For the president, we have any say in who does choose the president? So, if we're partners, and I want the highest office in the land, shouldn't we have a say? There are too much of things that we just don't have a say in. There are too much at times that we are just not counted, we're just not in the conversation. And I am happy to be a part of this team who says that we want to have a say and we want to be in the conversation and we will not continue to take just now and no for answer. The people of Tobago need to understand. And I think they're understanding, you know. They're understanding, but you see sometimes, when you lack plenty things like how they starve with for cash and whatever percentage, sometimes you might be able to be hungry, but your children can't. True. So when fancy story come around, sometimes you just get catch. Mightn't be your intention to get catch, but you just get catch. The Tobago House of Assembly has not only been disrespected over the years, Deputy Presiding Officer, but treated as a spectator, not as in the terms of Trinidad and Tobago, right here in Tobago. Where else in the world you could have a building of that magnitude constructing on your island, and the head of that island, the Honorable Chief Secretary, can't go in there? Where else? The Secretary for Finance can't go in there. But you want to come and tell me you want to walk in the quarry, and they should I tell her, yeah? No. If it's good for you, it's good for me. And if you take this administration to tell people, know your place and respect me, this administration did it. And you know the biggest joke of the day, the minority leader talking about foreign exchange? Yeah, no. You can't laugh, you can't cock up your foot, you can't clap, but you have a few other things you could do. I don't even think Secretary James mentioned it hard enough, and we don't echo it often enough. One of the things that could constantly bring Tobago foreign exchange, a license for Studley Park Quarry, which was routine for 21 years, all of a sudden is surrounded with problems that we can't get. Studley Park Quarry was routine to get a license when they were in power. Now that these hands of power has changed, Studley Park becomes problematic to get a license. We're talking about tourism and bringing people here. On the domestic level, we can't even get people to Tobago fast enough, often enough, and regular enough. We had a carnival the other day that was hugely successful. And despite what I say, I wanted to give the Secretary for Tourism chief tips. It is the most people I ever seen in Tobago. Even the tourism minister, they in tongue whining. Yes, he was there, I see him. Even they know that it is happening in Tobago. Try to get across. He get to get on a flight, but the layman can't get no flight. You know how much people wanted to come? And they can't come. But when you watch the TV, you see Caribbean Airlines going to a new destination, a new destination, a new destination. How you want me to understand when you tell me? Most of the airlines tell you that our local airlines, they don't make money on the Tobago route, but yet you can't get a flight when you go in the airport. The decision seemed to be taken somewhere else, Deputy Presiding Officer. That every time we seem to think Tobago is making a step forward, you try to find some technical way to tell them, stop, you're going far enough. But you know what? On December 6, 21, the people of Tobago, in no uncertain term, told the PNM, stop, you went far enough. 21 years was enough to choke these people, to let them go. I just want to touch a little, I really don't like to talk behind people back, but the member for Roxborough Argyle doesn't give you no choice, He don't give you no choice. He comes in. The favorite part of some children, them who like book, the favorite part of the school life is recess. That member comes in this house, this honorable house. Stay long enough. I don't know if it's when the lady bring around the check. I don't know why, but as he done talk, disappear. If you look at the records, anybody could go and check it. This is what we 35th sitting. It must last out a handful. And he ain't last out today. And Deputy Presiding Officer, the more times that he lasted the whole sitting was when he was on a good team. So right now he can't even stand himself. I don't know how in heaven's name you want to be a part of this honorable house. The people entrusted confidence in you. And all you're doing is what we're trying to get rid of on the island to raise productivity. You're treating this house like an early morning walk. So, I say even that had to stop. Yes. The people at Roxborough need to take note of that. I don't know if CPEP does pay anybody inside your sitting around the table. It's the government. And you're coming in, you run out. You come in, you run out. And that is the man who has the most. If you don't know better, when he's talking, you swear the truth he's talking, you know what he's talking about, The way he just formalize the conversation. But after he talk, all he talked that the chief secretary said, I'll come and tell him, well, you don't know the difference between the two things he was talking about.
No, they're not sitting there because it's me alone.
Deputy Presiding Officer, even as I look to run up, I want to say in no uncertain terms that I, Wayne Clark, member for Lambo Lowlands, is fully committed to this team and fully committed to discourse and fully committed to seeing Tobago rid itself of that colonial enemy in Trinidad and get Tobago to where it should rightfully be. We keep talking and talking. 42 years, 44 years is a long time. In 44 years again, if it takes us 44 years to get to this place and we're still not standing on solid ground, I'm afraid that many of us sitting in here wouldn't be around for 44 years again. And you know what? I don't know about you. You must just drink noni and whatnot, but I don't have 44 years. I want to see Tobago raised to its fullest potential. Tobago get respected here and now in my lifetime. I don't want to leave that burden on my children. If we open the door, then they could walk through. Let us work. This team, let us work together. Let us continue the work. Despite the starved resources and the few things that we get in. You know, if you really sit down with a little bit and take your time and analyze how you just do things.
Mba, you have 5 more minutes of speaking time.
I think that will be just perfect. You're so lovely. We have done more in 3 years than a lot of people has done in 3 terms. We have set out on a path that will raise the level of not our friends, our financiers, our nothing. I don't even know if we have financiers because, oh gosh, when election come around, the bar hole in my pocket. But you know what? We set out to raise the level of each and every Tobagonian, and that is the mission, and that is what we can't take our eyes off of. To end, Deputy Presiding Officer, some people will rely on complaining, raising their hands and saying we don't have enough. Yes, we are saying we don't have enough, but in the meantime, we are still working, still covering ground, and still breaking new ground for the people at Tobago. We're not going to stop. I am proud to be part of this team. I am proud to be one of the people chosen by the Chief Secretary, where I presently reside in that department. And I want to say, I mean, me I no profit about it. I know when you get on a suit and it was too big for you to tell the Chief Secretary you're going for your work. Yes, you can remember when the Chief Secretary was... Yes, and you know it really happened. Me are coming for your work, don't fret. But I just want to say, as sure as that materializes, I want to tell Tobagonians, rest assured that we are coming to relieve them from that lasso around the neck that was placed by those in Port of Spain. That we're going to liberate Tobago, we're going to start the movement, and sure as the sunshine, we're not going to wait 44 more years. Thank you. Let me go home.
Councillor Tasha Grace Boyce, you may now join the debate.
I want to go. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, esteemed members of this Honorable House, and the people of Tobago. I stand here proud of my team today. I don't know if in the lunchroom they feed all your hot pepper or something, and if this was a cricket match, left stump gone, right stump gone, center stump gone, you all have bowled a beautiful innings. I must say, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, that I stand here with the task of correcting weaponized incompetence, weaponized ignorance, and weaponized arrogance. Because that's what the minority has presented to us today. And if we were to listen to what they had to say, the two presentations that have gone thus far, the people of Tobago will have to understand how dangerous those things are: weaponized incompetence, weaponized ignorance, and weaponized arrogance. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I rise in full support of this motion laid by the Secretary for Finance, Trade and the Economy, and it calls for central government to fulfill its duty to the people of Tobago and to ensure that we receive all our monies as statutorily due in accordance with the law. So despite the allocation being unfair, our request is fair. We want the money when it is due, how it is due. Despite the central government continuing to punish the people of Tobago for rejecting them at the polls, our demands on behalf of the people of Tobago are just. And despite us continuing to operate under a system that continues to depress, oppress, and disadvantage the aspirations of this administration and our people, we continue to fight for what is truly and rightfully ours in this union. The insufficient allocation of resources to Tobago is an attempt to hinder our ability to address critical developmental challenges, and as my colleagues have all indicated, this is not a side-by-side arrangement, that we are seeing development running apace in Trinidad, and Tobago has to beg to be considered Tobago has to be begged to want what is best for our own people. Tobago has to be begged to be listened to and respected, and our dreams given flight. We have been asked to do a great many things with little. So before I get into laying out the division's key projects for this fiscal under the 44 in 44 initiative, let me just give a snapshot of some of our achievements, because I like how people trying to low-fence tourism. I don't know why the minority leader always complaining, oh, tourism on life support and nothing ain't happening. Who stakeholders he talking to? On a normal day, you can't get a flight to leave Tobago and come back on the same day. Every plane that I've been on between the islands is usually full. In fact, the numbers would show that so far for this year, international stayover is up by 7%. The people are coming. It shows that domestic air is also up by 7%, even though we have never gone back to the amount of flights that we had before COVID. And who is responsible for putting the tourism sector on life support? This same PNM administration that waited until January 2022 to open our international borders, when every other Caribbean destination was opened within 4 to 6 months of the COVID pandemic happening. Who is to blame? This same minority leader who in August of 2018 was appointed to the board of TTAL. And I want to read something into the Hansard, because I think this is very important for us to note that under the administration that he supported, under a previous Secretary of Tourism, an Executive Council minute number 155 of May 29, 2018, which is approximately 3 months before he became a director of TTAL. So clearly this is a directive that they should have actioned. And I quote, "The Tobago Tourism Agency Limited conducted a rationalization exercise on airlift into Tobago from the UK market, since there were 2 legacy carriers servicing the route. At that time, it was British Airways and Virgin Atlantic. And the Tobago House of Assembly is saying that they are heavily subsidized by us and operating suboptimally." This is 2018, they are saying this in an Executive Council minute. And according to their analysis, this is TTAL, the ideal scenario would be to terminate one operator, allowing the other to build capacity, which would result in increased frequency of service, which would result in more options for passengers and less costly for the THA. What does that mean? They themselves said that one of the flights should be terminated, but they're cussing we up and down for letting go Virgin in January of 2022, a decision that they said had to be made. We saved the people of Tobago $19 million. Because this flight was only bringing 4 people. 4 people. And you sat on the board of TTAL. Both of them, minority leader, minority councillor, signing off $19 million every year to bring 4 people every week. And you talk about performance? You ask about what we bring back from ITB and World Travel Market and these things. So very much unlike other secretaries who go with 1 suitcase and come back with 10, what this secretary has brought back in the last 3 years is a silver award, a bronze award, and 4th place in the world, most desirable islands, rest of the world, according to Wanderlust readers who are readers from all over the world, competing against destinations like Puerto Rico, Cuba, Palawan, Sri Lanka, people who spend millions of dollars to market their tourism product. But you know what I also brought back this year? A revised contract with British Airways that is saving the people of Tobago millions of dollars. The first time we were ever able to negotiate this contract downwards. Talk about cut and contrive, Madam Cut and Contrive. As I continue, key achievements. Over $5 million spent on critical tourism infrastructure upgrades to various sites, attractions, encompassing renovations, repairs, installations, and the execution of phase 1 of the Scarborough Beautification Project. The reopening of Manta Lodge under this administration, smallest hotel in the world as part of the famed Ascent Collection. Record number of visitors to the destination for cruise ship. We've talked about this before. The numbers that came to Trinidad and Tobago didn't come to Trinidad and Tobago, they came to Tobago. And you talk about 44 cruise cause this year, and I've gone to great lengths to explain, we don't invent cruises. We get our ships from Puerto Rico. They are doing massive upgrades to their port. That is why we have less cruises coming this year. But while I was sitting in the house, I got an email that we've added another call this year. And there is room for us to continue to add calls during the course of this year. And the funny thing about it, they always like to talk about, oh, the tourism secretary is a failure and all that shippiness. But we are getting double the amount of calls on Trinidad. Do you all say the Minister of Tourism is a failure? No, you don't. But you see, you all are experts in rank hypocrisy. Anyway, I continue. Upgrades to the Charlottesville Jetty, and I must commend the staff and the Secretary of the Division of Infrastructure, Quarries and Urban Development for doing this project in-house. I gave up part of my DP allocation for this to be completed, and they did an excellent job in upgrading the Charlottesville Jetty. We distributed over $680,000 to youth and non-governmental organizations and cultural groups in support of sports and events tourism initiatives across the island. Over $8 million distributed to accommodation sector stakeholders via the Tourism Accommodation Relief Grant Program, TAG, and the Tourism Accommodation Upgrade Program, TOP, to undertake critical upgrades to their facilities. Through the Festivals Commission, we distributed approximately $7 million, not a dollar of this went to a Trinidad contractor, to various community, cultural, and carnival stakeholders in support of their efforts and participation in our major festivals, such as the Tobago Carnival, National Carnival, Tobago Heritage Festival, and the Prime Minister's Best Village Trophy Competition. Tobago also, for the first time in the history of the Prime Minister's Best Village Trophy Competition, hosted a Tobago Finals in Tobago under this administration, where several of our Tobago groups participated and brought home top 3 place finishes, and our Tobago representative was crowned Miss Lorraine Rive 2024. We have also increased our local and regional partnerships to build capacity and strengthen the reach of Destination Tobago, and these partnerships include with IDB, Inter-American Development Bank, with our technical cooperation agreements and capacity building through our study tours, Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts to execute our tourism incentive awareness training, the Caribbean Tourism Organization, who has provided myriad support in areas such as tourism crisis communications, destination management, product development, etc., and our collaboration with the Airports Authority in the hosting of delegates from the Kappa Airline Conference that was held in August 2024. Through TITAL, we were a key sponsor of the first wedding summit held in Tobago by esteemed wedding planner Asha Mars Weddings. And because of this, Tobago has been invited to be part of a huge wedding expo, the Munaluchi Bridal Conference, that is taking place in the US Virgin Islands. I have been invited to speak about the destination and our potential to grow the destination wedding sector. And this has come from us focusing on marketing the destination to our various niche markets, including romance tourism. In the last fiscal year, the divisions and its companies successfully hosted and or sponsored several events. Blue Food Festival, Tobago Carnival, and I want us to clap Tobago Carnival. I want us to give a round of applause to Tobago Carnival. Tobago Carnival has been the single biggest, most successful event ever hosted by any Tobago House of Assembly, anywhere, anytime. Fight me on it. The stakeholders, the suppliers, the bands, the people, the hotels, everybody came together and Tobago was on show. And I'm sad to say that despite the fact that I try my best to, support the minority with the liquor party and give them a little advertisement, the only negative thing I heard about Carnival was this Nirvana thing. What was going on with that? Clearly Nirvana wasn't close to heaven at all, more like hell anyway. But despite that, the Tobago Carnival was hugely successful. Queen of the Road production by TPAC, National Carnival celebrations, Pantrinbago Medium Band Finals, Force Festival, Turn of the Tide remake, Creative Calabash, Tobago Heritage Festival 2024, which saw the return of the villages of Golden Lane, Roxborough, and Mount St. George to widespread acclaim, our hosting of the Tobago finals of the Prime Minister's Best Village Trophy competition, and the hosting of our Junior Youth Congress. And I would also like to single out the sitting Junior Secretary of Tourism, Ms. Anthurium Lewis, who is in the public gallery this afternoon. And let me just say that I continue to be immensely proud of her representation. And at the regional competition, she was able to cup second place. And she really did a fantastic job representing Destination Tobago. Ms. Lewis, I thank you. Tobago was also represented at a number of international trade shows, because the reality is that we can't sit down and wait for the PNM to market the destination. We have to go out there looking for the business. So aside from World Travel Market, we were able to showcase Destination Tobago at the Global Tourism Resilience Conference, ITB 2023, the Trade Mission to Ghana that took place alongside the Ministry of Trade, Sea Trade Cruise Conference, the CTO's Sustainable Tourism Conference, Tobago Day in New York, and the State of the Tourism Industry Conference in the Cayman Islands. And participation at all of these events have served to raise Tobago's profile regionally and internationally. And as a result, they are inviting us to show up everywhere they have something. They just love having Tobago in the house. And it means that Tobago is doing its part, doing what it can do, doing what it must do to continue to remain at the front of mind in the competition, because tourism is a competitive market. It is hard for us to come back from where we were if when the race started, we were now parking the car outside the stadium. That's where Tobago was. But I can safely say that we are in the race. We are in the race at this time. We are competing amongst the best. And that is evidenced by the accolades that we have been receiving. And it says to you that regardless of how much they try to squeeze us, how much they try to keep us down, that we have a special thing in this Tobago here, and we fly that flag high wherever we go. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, as you may know, this list only represents a mere 25% of the work that the division and our companies have been able to produce this year. And we continue to demonstrate prudent financial management of financial resources, intentionality in our focus on standards, regulations, infrastructure development, and marketing, and commitment to the sustainable growth of our tourism, cultural, and creative sectors. Now, tourism is the second largest sector that makes up the private sector on the island. And the CSO recorded total visitor expenditure of approximately $45 million from our international stayover arrivals. And additionally, it is being said that Tobago collected approximately $8 million in hotel room taxes from legally registered properties. However, this number does not paint a true picture of the size of revenues. Certainly does not take into account the significant amount of revenues being earned from the domestic market, nor revenues collected from properties that do not remit hotel room taxes like villas and Airbnbs. However, despite its vast potential, the growth of the tourism sector has been constrained by our limited resources. Let me give you a case in point. In fiscal 2017-2018, right before the formation of the Tobago Tourism Agency Limited, the THA spent $41,121,296 on airlift alone, and that was for 5 carriers. Guess what is the allocation for TTAL this fiscal? To pay for airlift, recurrent expenditure, marketing, all these things. $42 million. So if you went from 1 year spending 41 or almost $42 million on airlift alone, so if all those planes flying, naturally they bring in people, they're not bringing air, right? But then the very next year, you give me the same 42 million and say, hey, hold that for airlift, recurrent, marketing, pay rent, pay donkey, buy gas, come on, make it make sense. Make it make sense. Deputy Presiding Officer, this allocation is a disrespect and a disservice to the sector, especially when Tobago contributes significantly to this nation's identity as a premier tourist destination. It's because we winning the awards and not Trinidad. Lonely Planet only look over here because it's Tobago that was really looking for, but they had to tackle on Trinidad just to not make them look bad. But that is okay. We understand what we bring to the table. To truly unlock the potential of our tourism industry, the THA must have fiscal space to invest in significant upgrades to physical infrastructure, comprehensive marketing campaigns, destination development, product diversification, and airlift most importantly. And to think, 3 years we got these awards, we got this recognition, and they're trying to downplay it. But what all was gained before is only when we come into government, people start to recognize what's going on in this space, I think we ought to take a little clap for that. We ought to get a little clap for that. Because it means that we have been putting in the work, and we continue to put in the work. And while the tourism authorities on that side like to talk about Tobago, he wanted to say Buku, but he said Baku. May I know where that is? The THA is the one that bears the burden of ensuring that this jewel remains polished, that we keep looking good. In the words of my chief secretary, we are the smaller, sweeter island, man. So we will continue to polish this jewel. 44 in 44 is critical. We are saying to the people of Tobago, they didn't give us what we asked for. But you see what we're going and get? We're going and do our best with that. And that is why we have the 44 and 44. So under the Division of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation, we have an allocation of 153 million under recurrent, 16.7 million under DP. And our flagship projects under the 44 and 44 would be the restoration of the Fort King George Lighthouse, and I'm pleased to say that it's on schedule to be delivered to the people of Tobago in December of 2024. A Christmas gift to the people of Tobago, putting on that iconic light. For those of you who grew up in Scarborough like myself, you know what that light meant. You know the feelings that it invoked in seeing that light spread across the waters of Tobago. And I'm saying that light will be turned on because the light has been turned on in Tobago. We went through 21 years of darkness. We're going into light now. The light will be put on and it will light the way to prosperity. We will be commencing the second phase of the Scarborough Beautification Project, and the focus would be on the waterfront, Calypso Rose Boulevard. We would also be building out the tourism infrastructure at Swallows Beach and No Man's Land. They represent a hub in the southwest of the island, and it gives an opportunity for us small entrepreneurs in the tourism sector to legally make a living. Thank you so much. To legally make a living, and Swallows Beach again, No Man's Land. We know what that means to the tourism product, and we really want to ensure that they look good and the people there can be allowed to flourish and that we can welcome more visitors to that space. We intend to deliver phase 2 of the Home of the Blue Food in Bloody Bay. And I know everybody enjoys trekking up to Bloody Bay for the Blue Food Festival every year, so it is our hope that by next year we'll be able to deliver the actual built huts, landscaping, utilities, the car park infrastructure, so that you will have a more comfortable time enjoying that activity in the northeast of the island. And finally, but not lastly, we want to deliver phase 1 of the Strawberry Redevelopment Project, and this project is very close to my heart. In 2022, I had the opportunity to speak to the users of the Strawberry Beach facility, and they lamented that for years, Strawberry, that used to be one of, or the premier beach facility on the island, was left to run down into a deplorable state. And I made a promise to those people that we, under this administration, in our first term, we would seek to redevelop the Strawberry Beach facility. And after countless hours of conversations and consultations, I can finally say that they have accepted the revised designs that we have submitted, and we want to commence delivery of phase 1, and we're hoping that we can do this project in-house. And I want the people of Tobago to understand that this is our project. So it's not about getting a Trinidad contractor to come and do the work. No, 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 no. We have the people here, we have the talent here, we have the resources here, we have the will here. Let us adopt this project as our own. Let us work hard to make it be a testament to the fact that Tobago people like nice things. And we could build nice things. And we could be having nice things. We don't have to let somebody come here and build nice things for us. We can build nice things for ourselves. So this Store Bay redevelopment project is not just for the people of Store Bay, Crown Point, and environs. It's for the people of Tobago. Because if this project works, it means that every beach facility that we have under our division can look like something out of a world-class magazine. And it's not just for the visitors to enjoy, but it's for the people who live here to be able to stand up proudly and say, we did that, we built that, this belongs to us, we will take care of it. And these projects, the whole point behind the 44 in 44 is for the people of Tobago to hold us accountable. We must be able to tell you that, yes, these things are the things we can safely deliver. So we're not going to come here and say, oh, we have 100 projects on paper, and we can't deliver. We want to be able to say that for every year that the Tobago House of Assembly has been in existence, we have one project for every year that will be delivered in this fiscal year. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I would also like to add that that is not the only things that the division plans to deliver. We actually have 56 projects in the pipeline, and some of these include provision of amenities at several of our beaches and waterfalls. I wish the member for Roxborough Argyle was here so that I could update him that the amenities, one of the spaces that have been identified for the addition of amenities is the Argyle Waterfall. We want to recommission the Bloody Bay Beach facility, develop the trail at the Highlands Waterfall. We intend to launch the division scholarship program, which is going to focus on tourism, cultural, and the creative sectors. We intend to have a partnership with Trinbago to extend the reach of the national instrument in our communities through our steel pan organizations. And we intend to roll out our community sustainable tourism-based program for the next 12 months.
Member, as per standing order 16.2, the House will now be suspended for 30 minutes and will resume at 5 p.m.
How much time?